So, I wanted to say a couple things, not just for, people who are looking for videos for inspiration on mental health or anything like that. I wanted to say a couple things for a couple other reasons. For me, mental health is really important. I didn't have a great childhood. My family gets triggered when I mention that my childhood wasn't the best. They get pretty triggered, and especially, my mom. And I understand, why she does on a deeper level. But stemming from childhood forward, that molds you into the person that you're going to be. If your family or your parents are not supportive, or your parents separate, or you don't have a good childhood, it's going to be hard for you to get the roots that you need and the love and nurturing that you need to be able to be a better person. And so, as someone who grew up with not a great childhood and not supportive parents and a supportive family, I've learned what not to do with my kids. So, when I went to a counseling office, I seen a sign that made the perfect sense to me as a person who has been through mental abuse, who was diagnosed with PTSD, anxiety, manic depression. There was a sign on the wall, and it had the child, it had you, like your child, your parents, and their parents. And their parents, it was like these lightning bolts coming down, and it said like, you're worthless, you don't do anything. And then your parent to you is like, you're disgusting, I hate you. And there's lightning bolts and like different types of things signifying that it's not a healthy language. And then there's a barrier between you and your parents, and it's like a glowing barrier. And from you to your child, it states, you are amazing. And so like that hit me on a whole other level. Like when you can look at a picture and it show you another meaning than like a picture's worth 1,000 words. You stand there with somebody and they look at that picture, they could get a different saying and meaning off of it than you get off of it. And so it's been brought to my attention that my ex has been posting videos about me online. And I've had some rough patches through my life, from childhood, my parents separating, losing family members, losing friends, moving constantly, being put in different schools, being used and abused by boyfriends, being used and abused by friends. I've been through a lot of things, but the hardest thing that I've been through over the past 4 months has been my separation and moving out of Montana. So one thing that I started doing for myself, and it's not anything that anybody should be ashamed of, but one of the things that I did was I decided to go to counseling. I got really low in my life to a point where I just felt like I wasn't enough for anybody, for my parents, for, my significant other, for my friends, for his family, for my family. And it really hit me hard. It made me feel like I didn't want to exist anymore. And the biggest thing in any relationship is communication. And I didn't have that. I didn't have the communication that you need in a marriage for the relationship to survive. And the other part of it is when someone has been raised with a gold spoon in their mouth, where they were loved and cared for and had family functions and they were bought everything and their parents stayed together and their parents were, well off and they had a loving family and things were great, versus somebody who had parents that separated, who lived in divey houses, who didn't get everything they wanted. That doesn't justify the reason to be a crappy person. but it justifies the reason of you handle and look at life differently than somebody else. And my significant other did not look at life the way that I did. Plus, not only that, there's a 10-year age gap. I'm 30, he's going to be 40. So the mindset is completely different. You know, I prefer older friends and family. I prefer older people in general because younger than me is childish. You know, I mean, everybody learns their own way. Everybody figures out their own pattern in their own way. But I learned early on, there's just certain things you can't do to get along in life. And as I got older, I matured and I understood more why I couldn't handle and do the things that I did. So the way that he looked at me and the way that he expected me to be as a person, at first when we were together, it was great. He loved everything about me. He basically worshiped the ground that I walked on. When we separated because a friend of mine came in between us, tried to control the situation, you know, was crazy, wanted to kick him out of the house that, you know, we were trying to buy. You know, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best situation. So I separated. I came to Pennsylvania. He stayed in Montana. And I came back from Pennsylvania to Montana to be with him, and he was not the same person. He's a person that holds a lot of resentment. And, you know, going back to mental health, a lot of people don't take mental health seriously. You know, when I started going to counseling, I decided that I wanted to acknowledge my mental issues and I wanted to take care of my mental issues. And for me,